Hello, everyone, to the big vacation episode.
Is this
of
the vacation episode?
It is the
I
vacation
didn't
episode.
I didn't know I would have known
I'm
something
on
else.
vacation right now, right? Still here.
I'm not on
Consistency
vacation.
and
I
king
don't think
and
this is a good
key
fit.
and all this kind of stuff. It's very important to be consistent in continuous delivery. So, how can I speak about continuous delivery when I'm not continuously delivering streams, right? Does it make sense? Say
No,
yes, please.
it's about continuously
Thanks.
delivering value, Adrian, not just the stream.
But this is a
Value.
value
Value is
stream.
fantastic.
Huh? Value stream, right?
It's
Value
valuable to
stream.
me. I'm having a lot of fun.
So, boost your Bootstrap business with continuous delivery. That was actually a substitution topic. So, actually, it's a real topic, but we picked it today pretty on short notice because we actually had planned to speak to Maria today, but we moved that into the future just because of technical reasons. It's already scheduled, so you can take a look. I forgot. I think on the 16th, 19th of June. I can't remember, but there will be on LinkedIn. You can find the event. But today it's about continuous delivery because this is such an important topic, or became such an important topic to me actually. Not only on the side of engineering, but on the side of business as well. Because I'm a CTO for 15 years now in the small to medium-sized business sector. And in the small to medium-sized business sector, there is not really or should not be a gap between business and development, which means that it's actually the same people working on the same goal to achieve something. In larger companies, you can have multiple larger, groups or teams working on different outcomes, products, on a combined effort, right? But different products. But you don't have that usually in smaller companies. So you need to have something in place where you can have basically share a goal, but align the basis of your company with those goals. And you need to have a methodology for that in order to make this happen. And in my opinion, going live in 2 minutes, right? So it's not live right now. But if you want to have
Trying my
something,
best not to interrupt you because I
you
like
could have just
interrupting
click it away, right?
because I like no, but Valorant mentioned it in the comments.
What are you for a type
I
of a
just couldn't
co-pilot?
resist.
What is it? This is this type of co-pilot, right? No, but never mind. So you need to have a methodology in place in order to get that right, and not only for the development part, because as I said, it's actually one big team, and there are so many benefits to this. Just some to mention: a better work-life balance, a better outcome, better value, less stress. Yes, actually, way more than that. It will come to then. We'll find reasons to talk about those and bring you a little bit closer the idea of why continuous delivery is not only a practice for the engineers, even though it does have its origin and its direct, practice in the engineering area, but it affects so much the outcome that it's actually a business topic as well. And this is the topic for today. I hope you enjoy it. Dennis, what are your opinions about that?
Well, I'm I'm leaning towards the extreme programming side of continuous delivery, right? So Bootstrap business, prototype, even if I'm doing a hackathon in like 48 hours, I will have some form of continuous delivery. You even saw me on stream using continuous delivery for a 2-hour coding kata. Like I wouldn't code live on stream explaining something unless there was something in the background, like refreshing some kind of form of integration. I did the refactoring, sort of clean code kind of refactoring for the mocks, right? So the state-based mocks and sort of how to separate behavior from state-based tests in Bitburner in the Go game example, sort of that subsystem of the game. And I had unit tests running, and I had one sort of integration test running constantly side by side, continuously rerunning and a heuristic to play the game for me, which is what the value proposition was for that stream. The value proposition was refactoring that safely without breaking that it works. It worked, which is a similar concept. Let's say if you ever did a kata in what's it called? The World of Warcraft Tavern one, the Gilded Rose kata. It helps if you just keep running the tests. A lot of people, what they miss with continuous delivery, once you have tests, there's no reason not to run them. So a lot of people start with no tests, so they also don't run their pipelines continuously. But that's not a healthy habit to form. And in small companies, in bite-sized companies, yes, you have a procedure, you have structure. But what I find, and I had a coaching session like this a few days ago with a client, similar problem, right? They are growing. They're a bootstrapped company. They are growing, and the top leader is hired me for coaching, essentially. Essentially on this, we're a bootstrapped company. We're not doing CD. We want to do CD. But we still have to be pragmatic. Resources are still short. We still have to triage very aggressively, like where our attention goes. I can go all in on CD, but then I don't get anything done for the next few weeks. That doesn't sound too CD, and I agreed. Yeah. So what came out of that discussion is that, and I'm very grateful for this realization that they had, the moment we saw it, we both had the same light bulb moment, is that when they explained their process to me, what they do to release, we essentially did a waste walk, a digital waste walk. We didn't actually walk physically. A digital waste walk through their process, through their release process. They immediately skipped on step one.
Which was?
Bump the version number. Because it was such an obvious thing to do. It's super simple for a human, because it only takes like 2 seconds, that they just immediately skipped it. And then when they explained it to me, okay, run it backwards to me, I felt I was missing something. And when we ran through it the second time, they told me, oh, no, sorry, I skipped step one. And I said, well, what's step one? I bumped the version. I said, that's where we need to start. And the moment I said that, it just clicked, because they were giving me things that take a long time. Their target was, we will automate things that are complex and take a human a long time. And that is the wrong optimization step. Because what we want to start with is, here's a step, a human is necessary, and we want to automate it so a human is not necessary. If we increase the speed of how much time the human needs, that is not automation. That is not continuous delivery. The point of continuous delivery in a small company that is growing is to remove all humans from the equation, especially on those pesky, it just takes me 5 seconds tasks, because it'll take an hour to automate. And you think, no, I won't automate it because it's just 5 seconds. The problem is you can't do that operation 20 times per day on every commit, which is what the target is. But if you're aiming too low and you're not targeting for removing humans from the pipeline, then you don't really benefit from adopting continuous delivery. So it's going to be clumsy and clunky and slow and expensive, which will deter you to do it later when the company is slightly larger. And then it will be hard. And I see a lot of engineering leaders, especially like founding engineers, who then become CTOs, or they are CTOs, but they code a lot. And then when they grow and they have this problem, they always have this, we waited too long. We waited too long and now it's hard. And step 3, the trifecta, we waited too long, now it's hard, and we accidentally started on the wrong end. Right? They start on the complex human side, and they want to, optimize the human aspect, not removing the human from the pipeline.
So why is it so important to remove the human from the process to create value?
Well, to make it scalable.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
So it's and we should be let's say a little bit precise about that. So we should be we should remove the human from the production process of engineering, which means that in the moment we have made our changes, this is where the human is necessary to do those changes, is the design process. So we're designing the next step, the new software, the new updates, the changes, the refactoring, we're doing those things. We can take help of automation in those cases, but it is necessary to have the human being or the so-called engineer in that moment who is executing this change. And then we're going into the process of production, which is nothing with there should be nothing manually and no new design. So it is not necessary with a random iteration to improve something. This is production. It should run as supposed to be. And when you make changes, this is something you do as a task. So this is the reason why production, everything with CI/CD pipeline, testing in place, up to pen testing, should be something you automate in your process. I think those are the basics to understand, to not make CD something where people start to neglect it before you can even make it a benefit for your business. Because many practices, technologies, methodologies are often neglected, or even, let's say, people really say no to them because they feel like a burden. They feel like a hurdle everyone needs to overcome, and sometimes several times a day, and say, oh, no, I can't do that. That is not for good. This will actually even harm our business instead of aid to our business. And that's not true. It is not true. The point in that moment is that you practice it wrong. And most people I see, or when I talk to the people who are with, let's say, have negative feedback or opinions about that topic, it's very often the case that they never really dig into that topic. So understanding what was the origin of this topic, the reason why people or like Dave Farley talking about these topics these days, Brian Finster and so many other people, right, talking about this exact topic. And this is because it delivers, it makes you deliver your, let's say, your value stream a different one. So you focus on the value stream. And in order to get that done or happening, you need to make sure you do it in a right way. So as you said, everything you manually do can create problems. And the last thing you want to have is problems, because you want to simply focus on the delivering process, which is not sending the copy of your current change to the client. This is done by the machine. What's mean by that is you want to have a new change, a new feature, a new iteration, which is the actual value, and make sure that this will, be done and delivered shorthandedly to a to the client, to the value, to the person who needs that value, right? Yeah. And creates value out of that then. And this is what we need to focus on: how to make this this process less cumbersome and let's say annoying to be in. And I think this is the very basic. So as long as we don't have that in place, we will have problems to get into the flow and start to accept those things as actually something good. And the last thing we want to have is fighting all day long with our peers. If we want to have, for example, CD in place, and our peers say, no, it doesn't work, it's actually hindering us. You don't want to have that, because that is a total waste of energy in the team to argue about those things just because you have actually done it wrong. And it's actually not hard. And sometimes it's easier to try to focus on the very basics. It's actually a very simple topic. And I think this is what many people don't see. They think if we adopt continuous delivery, trunk-based development, TDD, what CI/CD, what so many things we need to implement, it makes it, let's say, it scales the complexity. In reality, it scales the complexity down. Yeah. So in a process, when you work in CD, it feels so natural to work in it. It's like you do something, you finish it, you like it, and you ship it, you go to the next one, and it works. So it is. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm talking a little lot.
Wait, we have a waffle for that. Where's the waffle? There we go. I'll just put it on screen for next time when you're waffling on. Or if I'm waffling on, just put it on screen.
Yeah.
So one of my clients is sort of building observability products, trying to educate engineers in taking observability more seriously, the same way you and I are passionate about continuous delivery and extreme programming and, you know, business outcome focused product engineering. Um, and one of the things they struggle with is that most people mistake observability for the time and effort it takes to learn an observability tool. And I think when it comes to continuous delivery, we have exactly the same problem, right? So we say CD, like, do continuous delivery. Here's a few simple rules to follow, and that just goes in one ear and out the other ear. And what usually engineers or tech leads or engineering managers think it means is, oh my God, now I need to learn how Circle CI works, and can Circle CI be integrated with the entire ecosystem that we're using? And we have this like weird build step that I don't think will work on the cloud, and they just completely miss the mark, and they go way too heavy on a tool. And having a CI tool does not mean you're doing continuous delivery. That's not what it means. It means that no human is involved on a step. It could be the build step, it could be the release step, it could be the deploy step, it could be all of those steps. And then we get into the weeds of, are you continuously integrating? Are you continuously delivering? Are you continuously deploying? Which one is it? Because it's the one where a human is not involved. If you have a human involved for release to production, then you might be using feature flags, but you're not doing continuous delivery. You might be doing continuous deployment. You might be doing continuous integration. So even if it's just a staging server, every time I commit, the staging server updates itself in a graceful way. Okay, no problem there, right? That might also be enough, right? So there's no human involved with getting it onto the staging server, and all changes are integrated.
Stage could be your trunk. So as long as you don't have other branches, it is still a viable way to practice continuous delivery, as long as it doesn't take a week until you update from stage to production. You need to have a form of automation for this at least once a day as well.
But it's not about the tool. The tool is, we have a comment about it by Ali. Ali, hello. Ali has been very active this week on our posts. So huge shout out to Ali. Is it Ali? Ali? Am I pronouncing it correctly? The tool is a small part, but this is all that gets stuck in engineering ways.
That's big. That's one of the big problems.
It gets stuck, right? Like it just triggers the import. I never use that tool. I'm not gonna. I don't feel.
It triggers our resistance immediately. It's there, right?
And that's the problem. Yeah. That's the problem.
So we don't want to change. So I post a video tomorrow about change again.
You had a teaser about today's episode that was really popular. Do you think there's some comments on there that we should perhaps address on stream?
Was there a teaser? Now I understand why you should. Okay. No, it was not a teaser actually for that one, but we can take a look. Wait a second.
I mean, it was in my mind. It was related. It was the one about being a beginner or being what was it? Sorry, I've been so deep in LinkedIn today that
I can't find it. It's LinkedIn is so awful to find its own post. It's one of the big challenges of people using LinkedIn is to find their own stuff. But yeah, it's aim for the negative feedback. You mean? No, you don't.
Let me find it.
I suck at coding.
I suck at coding. Yeah, that's the one. That's the hook you used. Yeah, I love that hook. So you had a post about imposter and sort of denigrating yourself, like saying, like making yourself inferior, or sort of projecting your doubts as sort of presenting yourself as lesser than, by sort of trying to play it safe by dumbing yourself down, and that usually backfires because it just makes it easier for you to remain in your resistance, remain in your sort of imposter state.
And people argued. I think one of the comments was that was actually one of those comments really tried to challenge my post, which was good. And that was about, hey, is imposter not something more experienced people have who downplay themselves a little bit or too much in that case. And so why, first of all, why have I mentioned imposter syndrome in this case? It's because many people do that for themselves. It's I saw that on X or Twitter. I saw that on LinkedIn. So sometimes people of all experiences start to open a thread and talk about, hey, I'm sucking at this or that, I can't do that right. And then people join and say, yeah, we all have this problem. And somehow this is a little bit like people play themselves down in that moment. And no one is really saying, hey, let's go into the idea of let's learn and take that as an opportunity or something like that. And that plays a little bit the role of continuous delivery as well, right? So because in order to practice continuous delivery, you need to have confidence, you need to take responsibility and do that in a mature way. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So if you want to practice something which leads to a valuable outcome, to a good product, in order to reduce stress and improve well-being, those kind of things are the outcome as well of continuous delivery. If you want to have that in the mind of DevOps, for example, then you need to make sure that you don't think I suck at coding. Because I suck at coding, right? Could be, if you put a big smiley next to it, understood as a sarcasm or joke or something like that. But if you really think that, you have a problem.
Yeah, you're looking for support. You're looking for a community, right? So it's a bit tongue-in-cheek because you're trying to sort of be more approachable, right? So you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, so you're making yourself a little bit more approachable. But when you're using that as a, when you weaponize your own incompetence, it'll prevent you from making progress. And it'll dilute your ability to reason critically, and it will negatively impact your influence, your authority, your professionalism, and your go ahead.
There is resistance. I want to quickly refer back to resistance. This is the most powerful force every one of us feels next to creativity. But unfortunately, more often we experience resistance, right? And this became one of my favorite topics because in the moment I understood resistance in myself, in others. I became what I call myself a pro. That's the difference. I have that from the book, or the War of Art.
The book, Adrian. The book. What's the book called? Say
The War of Art from Stephen Pressfield. It's a very important book, right? And it's up there. It's up there. This one. And so why is that so important to understand? Because this inner force is the same force you experience every single day when you need to wake up. Get up early in the morning, make your bed, and make sure you do everything on time and do it motivated, right?
It's the first snooze versus stop decision.
Exactly, and you feel that every day, no matter how far you have progressed in your career, you still feel that little voice in your head trying to convince you don't need to do that, you can't do that, or I suck at coding, for example. And the problem is, if you start to adapt the idea of I suck at coding and you say that 10 times in a row in a week to you start to believe it. And that's the big problem here, of course. So what does have this to do with continuous delivery? Continuous delivery is sometimes called an elite performer practice. It's not actually, everyone can perform that. But the point is, in order to get to continuous delivery, you need to become better in what you do. You need to step up, you need to make progress, you need to become better every day. The continuously part of continuous means that you need to do that every day. So you need to make steps every day to get there, which means you need to become better and not worse. And if you start to have some form of negative propaganda for yourself where you tell, hey, I suck at coding, ha ha ha, I have my community, everyone sucking at coding, then no one in this community believes in I could do that. And this is what I really dislike that. So we all should become aware of what resistance really is and make sure that the resistance can't touch us, which means that it will always be there. We need to be aware of that. that. And this awareness, sometimes we need discipline to overcome it. Sometimes we have creativity, which pulls us. This is the opposite for us, and pulls us out, and we're doing something with such an inner motivation. And next day, this motivation is gone, and you're fighting again with the resistance part where you need discipline. So in order to become a professional person and for continuous delivery, real talk now, you need to have a team of professionals. It doesn't make sense to try to do continuous delivery with a totally amateur behavior, totally irresponsible, and just everyone tries to be the perfectionism person, doing everything of his coding right, not pushing because maybe it's not perfect right now. No. This is not how continuous delivery works. You need to become a professional who takes the things like they come, and you deliver how it is, but in a good way and in a decent quality. And in order to do that, you need to become a professional. And I suck at coding is a no for you. Instead, you need to say, I am a learner. Or as Dave Farley puts it, we as software engineers are professional learners. This is what we are. So we became professionals in learning. And this is what we need to, or how we should frame ourselves in order to become better every day. And, you should think about that for a while if you are that person right now. Because I was, for, let's say, nearly the majority of my professional years I was working, not in that mindset. So I was somewhere, I was always pretty responsible, I have to say. But if I would call myself mature or something like that, it's a little different thing. So because as long as I wasn't aware of those things, I haven't done anything in awareness about them. So it was like sometimes I was just giving up and just binge watched something instead of maybe working on the next project already or something like that. And sometimes we need to get to a point, so like continuous delivery, and this takes effort, right?
I'm reminded of my first years in the industry, and I know we had like very slow release cadences. But back then, and this was in 2007, the industry was on this sort of, we'll release once per month, and that's normal, right? We will release once per month, and that's good compared to once per year. Because we were working on the sort of projects that were on long time horizons. And cloud, internet, like cloud-based software was not anywhere near mainstream. So people were used to, buying Windows or buying Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office, and installing it once every few years, right? So that sort of physical distribution of software has sort of cemented, at least as consumers, in our eyes as, okay, software needs to be distributed at least once every few years, right, to stay up to date. And then the web technologies came, and websites came, and then web applications came, and we sort of changed our stance on that. And early on in my career, I was always trying to, not trying, but I struggled to find the right balance about this feeling of, it's been a long time since we released. I'm getting a bit uncomfortable. At the same time, if I were to release something way too early, I would feel a similar kind of discomfort. And usually there wasn't a clear overlap between when does the discomfort of releasing too early go away and when does the discomfort of, it's been a while, start. Like it wasn't a clear transition, which made it very easy to miss and just be stuck in this limbo.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I even can remember that most developers I knew back then, including me, were happy to not being forced to release anything. It was like there was this typical hide and seek game developers played Maybe we don't need to do that, or just partially update a single file on the server so nothing breaks. So there was not much of confidence back then, and the willingness to deliver something and get feedback was so tainted by fear that there was actually no willingness. Instead, it was, it expressed itself as fear, as rejection, as neglection, as so many things. So when the negative force, the resistance was so strong because everyone knew that updates were so big. It was an aggregation, a collection of so many changes over the last weeks that no one really knows what happens if you really update this now, right? And especially the way how we test things, or in many cases we haven't tested at all. Let's say that there were no type linters, no CI/CD pipelines like we have it today.
I mean, they were just so clunky and
Yeah,
considered a luxury.
it's
and
not like
sort of
today. It's not like
expensive-
today. Not like
and an
today.
expensive
Yeah.
setup that you really needed to double down on the finances, on budgeting for a pipeline.
Yeah,
But today,
let's say to that time, pipeline was in IntelliJ the auto uploader function for FTP. That was the pipeline, and it was very much from the
okay, but let's
developer
fast
machine.
forward.
To
I don't
this.
want to get
Yeah,
stuck
yeah.
in nostalgia. Like
Yeah.
nowadays, now the reason I mentioned this anecdote specifically from the beginning of my career is that I experienced different phases of this feeling. Right, so a lot of people experience this feeling end to end. It's been a long time since we released, and I know release impacts client. But if you're stuck on a feature branch, you might experience this just about getting to the trunk. Not to the customer, not to production, not to staging, to trunk. Oh, it's been a while since I, synced up. It's been a while since I integrated. Right, so this resistance is there for a reason. The issue is a lot of people mistake, well, not a lot. I have to correct myself. There's a minority who think they do continuous delivery, but are not. And it's our conversation with Hugh that reminded me of this, where you, the team, have like a server that you call production, and you deliver to it, continue regularly, but it's not open to users. When it's not open to users, and your real target audience cannot access your software, and you are pushing to them regularly, that's not continuous delivery. And that is the product engineering mentality of continuous delivery. It has to reach a user. See, the anxiety does not stop unless it reaches a user. You can say delivery for me is staging server. Okay, who will look at it, right? So we are trying to remove the human involved in the build, in the integration, in the release, in the deployment, in delivery, so that we can reach the final human quicker and in a scalable manner. That's the point. The customer is the only human we're trying not to remove from this pipeline. If the only way you get the continuous integration is by removing the customer from the equation, that is not the right way to do it. Because I see a lot of people do this. Oh, we can't release the customers, so here, let's create a fake pipeline where we don't have to release the customers. That's okay if it's like a learning wheel, a stepping stone. But if that's where you stopped and then you stopped investing, that's a huge waste of time.
I know that some people use staging system for pen testing and those kind of things, and that is actually something like that. But there is an automation straight to production after everything has passed, and this is something we need to understand here as well, or at least it makes an update every night or something like that.
Yeah, if it is multi-stage, like there's one pipeline that does nightly builds, there's one pipeline that builds on every commit, there's one pipeline that releases the stage. And then there's a completely
it's about an automation, a daily automation.
Yeah. And then there's another pipeline that is human triggered that syncs whatever is on stage to production.
Yeah.
That's a healthy setup, right? So it has multiple parts. some of them terminate early, they don't reach the customer, but one of them reaches the customer, and there is the minimum amount of human in the pipeline. That's okay. If your regulation requires it, if your SOC 2 certification requires it, it's solvable. But people take it to the extreme. They say, no, we have ISO certifications, we're SOC 2 certified, we have PCI compliance to worry about, we can't do continuous. I hate that excuse. Because they just don't get it. They just didn't decompose their system to, okay, no, never mind what you think is impossible. What is the process? What is the process where humans are involved? Because in small companies, if Adrian is in a company, if you're in a company and you're the CTO in a company and you're the only one who knows how to deploy, your boss factor is not 1. Your boss factor is Adrian. Anybody in your team can take a vacation. You can have a boss factor of 1, a boss factor of 2, a boss factor of 3. But when you're the only one who knows how to deploy, your boss factor is Adrian. Everybody except Adrian can go on vacation. Everybody except Adrian can be sick. Everybody except Adrian can go offline on Slack. And if you're the strategic leader who is most stressed out about having to be the business owner and worry about salaries, not just the product, it's a lot of stress.
If you repeat it one more time, people start to believe like I am this bus factor. So maybe stop there. Okay. So let's try to steer this conversation a little bit more to the headline of the show today.
Yeah.
So boost your bootstrap business with continuous delivery. So we have talked about what CD is right now, what are the obstacles, and what are the resistances
Common
there.
resistance patterns. Yeah.
But why should we have continuous delivery? So we mentioned already some parts in the engineering aspect, or we should have there. But for me, the most important part is to bridge the gap between business and development. Because in every conversation we have, in really every conversation I have with other teams, my teams, whoever teams, companies, other CTOs, it is always the same. May it be an agency company who's doing software on contract for others, if it's your own product, if it's a SaaS company, it really doesn't matter. So there is always the need to have a very short distance between business and development, right? So it can be the product owner and development, it can be the CEO, the product, the CTO even sometimes. It doesn't matter. It is about to not have departments and have this flow, this context of this product, right? It can be multiple contexts in a company, but in a small company, which is the topic for today, it's only one context. And this context should be continuously looping in a feedback cycle. This is what we want to have, because the business people are very important because they know what the clients say, what the clients maybe have to complain about, what they need to create value. So they know how to make this product successful. And as long as this feedback is coming straight back to developers, right? To talk with the developers, which makes then the product owner a developer as well in this case. And you have this idea of we are all developing this software. Then the next change after the feedback was given is only several hours later, already on production, and the business person can then talk with clients, customers, show that, write a newsletter, do something about that, and get the next iteration of feedback in. The result is the users see, oh, there is progress. So we as human beings, we recognize progress. Progress is so important and so deeply integrated into our minds that we really can see it. And on the contrary, we are unhappy if we have no progress. So progress is the foundation of happiness. And that's extremely Tony Robbins said that, but this is very important and can be applied to software engineering as well. As long
and I know Tony. I know Tony's work very deeply. One of my trainers who sort of shown me the ropes on resistance and human psychology and human behavior is one of Tony's former leaders. it's not only that progress is, how do you say it,
Progress is the foundation of
the
happiness.
foundation of happiness, but it is also, what's important is that you need to have a feeling that you have contributed towards this progress, because somebody else's progress does not necessarily make me happy. The progress of my kids makes me happy because I'm feeling actively contributing towards that. I'm proud of them, right? Because I'm sort of, doing all this stuff to set them, to create an environment where they can learn and grow. And then, even though the progress isn't mine, I still get to feel that. And in the team, it's very important that if we're talking about progress, the progress isn't the progress isn't that engineers deploy something. That's not progress. What's progress is that the product designer or the product owner had an idea, and when they see the deployment go out, they get that feeling of, oh wow, they're making progress on my idea. Oh wow, they're making it real. Like, and we only had the meeting 2 days ago. Wow, it's that feeling, right? And the opposite is the same. When engineers look at it, they can see progress of, oh wow, the other team is integrating with my stuff, and they can get to see progress without having meetings. They can observe progress without having meetings. Oh wow, somebody's doing the part,
Meaning. This is meaning.
and observe meaning, yeah, and have like a tangible proof of meaning and influence and impact and fulfillment. Derive fulfillment from all of these touch points. Because the touch points are then just signals. They're not human. I don't have a meeting to validate whether my work was useful. That's the worst kind of dysfunction in a company. It's like I sacrificed this much, but it comes down to the demo of whether it was useful or not. And then somebody finds something wrong with the logo, and everything goes to shit. And it's not helpful. Like, right. So it is, if your only touch point with reality, with progress, is a meeting, that's a huge dysfunction, and that's what continuous delivery is solving. It's eliminating those human run processes of like manually dishing out validation from the equation, from your ability to feel fulfilled, from your ability to observe meaningful impact.
Yeah, and now to build up on this is, if you feel meaning, if you have responsibility already, you've taken responsibility, you work in a mature way, and you have taken ownership as well of the things you do because you see those impacts your work, your changes have. In that moment, you have bridged this gap between business and development. And this is so much different of those typical companies where you have this big gap between those departments. They are actually departments. The entire collaboration is manifested in the Jira board. No one knows exactly why. Everything is stacked up, and people are just getting blamed for not doing something. The engineers complain no one is really explaining what it is. You try to do something and then you get slapped because it's not what it's supposed to be, or someone was imagine in that moment.
Yeah.
Having a workflow of collaboration should work without a Jira board.
Okay, but now to check in with Kaloyan, a Jira board is nice and fine, but let's say bootstrapped company. It's still pizza size. So I can still get everybody in the same room, and everybody knows what's going on much better than, let's say, the quality of the Jira board. In a small company, you can actually have issues when people don't document everything they do. In fact, the people who are actively on meetings and actively collaborating with team, they know the most. So the documentation is trailing, lagging, and is incomplete, which is not the case in larger companies. Larger companies are dominated by documentation, where it's not enough anymore to just be present. You also need to read what everybody else is doing because it's influencing your work, or just follow GitHub.
Knowledge transfer, yeah.
Knowledge transfer, yeah. You're just trying to follow the data trail. You've probably seen this before. If you're an engineering lead in like a slightly larger company, what you're doing actively is looking, okay, what was the last commit on that branch? Oh, somebody opened the PR. Oh, we just had a release. Oh, one of the build pipelines is red.
Yeah, you start to need to have an assistant manager as engineer there.
Yeah. You just, there's a lot of data, and you're looking for signals on everything that is available to you. And that is a completely different workflow compared to like Bootstrap, small companies who are still tightly knit together. And,
Yeah,
going
but
to lunch together is the big meeting. It's not Jira updates.
I think the biggest difference is small companies can move way quicker than large companies can, and they
Yep.
need to move way quicker because otherwise they won't survive. And you don't want to move too fast. You still should create a decent level of quality and have decent methodologies, and you should have, let's say, decent form of documentation. But the more you can do on the fly, like for example, TDD can help you improving things, TypeScript can help you improving things, where you have everything which makes things more easy to understand and reducing complexity and helping you to uncover functionality instead of reverse engineering. You can just take a look at the test plan specification and you know what was the idea of this thing. So without referring,
we're way too advanced for a Bootstrap company.
yeah, but let me get to the point. It is like as a bootstrap company. So the topic is about that, and I think Carla was referring to that as well. So in the context of a small to medium sized business, which is in Europe often referred to a very small business, sorry, in the US, but in Europe sometimes it is. So let's take with the two pizza team thing. It is like you need to find a way where you can continuously work on something and don't lose, for example, the feeling for budget and time, because those are the actual hidden problems you have. We had that with you, for example, right? With Rage King, who told us on several streams that he is going to, pay way too much for. Or basically is running out of money on some point, right?
The budget, and it's not really the money, but rather the expenses part of cash flow are now heavily optimized towards labor, and all labor right now is a function of is a function of features. So the more money goes towards labor, the more features they will have. But that is not, that is the wrong way around towards continuous delivery. Because remember the beginning of the episode, the point isn't that we deliver features. The point is that we deliver the right features to the right customer at the right time. If it's the right feature and the right customer, but it's way too late, I'm sorry.
And this is the point. So what I wanted to say is, for example,
usually 90% of the time, if you're on budget, whatever, people are like, on budget? Okay. Deadline? Yes.
No, you are not on budget. This is the problem. So just because you still have money to pay, but you have, I want to finish my point actually.
Oh, I interrupted your point and now you're interrupting me. I see. Yeah, let's go with your point. Sorry.
Okay. So the point is, when it comes to business, right? You have a small businesses. You have a limited amount of budget, especially Bootstrap. That's the reason why there is Bootstrap in the title. Yeah. Is there is a hard limitation. Maybe it's your money, maybe some personal investor, maybe some family money. Don't know. So it's how you can, or sometimes money you make out of agency work while you're building a product. It's very common as well. But this does have an end. So what you need to do very early on is adopt continuous delivery just to have a longer time horizon. This sounds weird, but it is actually the case. So if you focus on, we start to build something now and we make it in a way that we actually don't know exactly when we are finished. So we don't try to foresee 20 features, but we build several that actually works in a short amount of time, get feedback and work towards an outcome, which we then can validate and prove that it's actually market fit, it works, stuff like that. So we know early on in that process how much we need to which time. And not in the end, like we had it with Rage King in the example, that it is somehow a lot to do and still no money there anymore. So it's a very stressful situation for everyone and it's dangerous. And with continuous delivery, you can see that very early on in the process where you are and where you will be, and that you need to take measurements in order to, or measures in order to get to another point, in order to make changes so that you can extend the timeline. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that and you can stop working on that. And this form of feedback you only get if you do it in a continuous way. And now you can pass your point.
Well, and I'm glad you raised this point, right? Because it's to connect it with my point as well, is that what you just said, the continuous delivery, the benefit of continuous delivery for smaller businesses is that it is generating data. Data that you would normally not generate. Right? So data as in, does it crash when I deploy it? Can customers use it? Will customers use it? Will users pay more if they use it? Is there a problem when users use it? Is there a problem when a certain user uses it? Is there a problem when a certain user uses it only at a certain time in a certain context? Like, that's data that you want to generate, because you can't predict that stuff in advance. Like, it's very hard to sort of analyze your system well enough to predict.
People think they can. Actually.
People think they can, but they're not the user. No engineering, no entrepreneur, no engineering leader, no product leader is their user. That's why we need to have product interviews. That's why we have product owners. That's why we have product research, market research. We are not our users. We understand the system like it's our baby, but we are not the users of that system. We can understand the system, but we don't understand the user. We need to gather more data about how our system is being used by our users and how our users feel about that. Not generate more data about our deadlines. That's what most people do.
Yeah.
It's like, how far along with the deadline are we? Here's the plan. How are we in relative terms towards the plan? That's what most engineering cultures spend their focus on generating data for. Their roadmaps. They are ticking boxes. Here's our roadmap in the spreadsheet. Please tick whether we're on time or slightly behind. And
please do overnights and weekend times in order to get that.
Exactly. And then, if you're not on time, we got to get that time back by working a weekend. And that's measuring the wrong thing.
And then you start to make the developers guilty for that as a manager.
And then you make them guilty. And then they...
yeah. Good strategy.
Because the biggest problem in such environments, in non-continuous small organizations, is they are building the wrong product and they don't know it. They're building the wrong features in the wrong order. They are serving the wrong customer.
In a false sense of security that they are actually in budget. And this is one of the biggest problems.
Yes. And it doesn't matter that you're on budget. It doesn't matter that you're on time if you're serving the wrong customer. If you're serving the wrong feature to them. Because a lot of people are deluded and they say, there's, here's a 47 billion market. If we get 1% of it, that's huge success. That's a lot. Even if it's a big pie, if you get a small part of the pie, wow, that's already successful. The problem is most people don't want your product. And you're like aiming your product at all these people, and then nobody's biting. And you need to aim your product towards the person who might bite, but there's two of them right now, and you're deluding yourself into targeting growth KPIs, not conversion KPIs. Because maybe the data says, we're growing very fast, but not a lot of people are paying. And what you should be really focusing on is, if not a lot of people are paying and we're growing very fast, then what we have built is the wrong product.
It's not the first company who then basically died in the free tier.
And then you die in the free tier. And then people tell you, you're in the shit. Have you tried freemium? Or like trying to upsell them? And then it's like, no, like we built the wrong product. How can we market the wrong product for free? And then try to get their trust back by asking them for money.
It's oftentimes when you have this typical two competitive things. One is free, one is expensive. Then you go to the free one. Yeah.
You can only go freemium. The freemium model only works if you have built the right product, but there is reasonable friction on the payment.
So no,
That's when you go freemium.
maybe the right product is very abstract. So the right product is the right fit
The
for a problem
product
that is
where
right
you have
now there, right?
evidence of generating revenue, where the right product is the product where you have evidence of sustainable cash flow, right? So, and even for a larger company, for a startup that is perhaps has huge aspirations, like the North Star is like very ambitious, you also need to have proof of scalability. Google, for example, a small company from the US, Google is notorious for killing cash flow positive, successful products that are not scalable. It might make 100 million per year, but if it's not scalable to all Google search users, they will kill it. And there is notoriously this Google graveyard. They kill a lot of good products just because they're not scalable. They are successful, they have product market fit, they have potential, but sorry, if the scalability tick is not ticked, they kill
But
it.
in a very
In the
small
small
business area,
company,
it's a little bit different because sometimes companies are happy that they can sustain with 10 people for the next 5 years, and that's already a success for them. And I wouldn't say it's not a
yes,
success because we shouldn't target to become, everyone should become a multimillionaire, something like that, because that would be a very unhappy world because most people would burn out trying that. And I
it's
think
not
that
for everyone.
what? Yeah.
Not for
So
everyone.
Scott Galloway, I don't know if you know him, but he's a professor in the US,
Hmm.
and he's doing
I know Scott. Yeah.
he said that a billionaire it's easy to become it's easy to become richer as a billionaire, but it's hard to become a millionaire. And I think that's a very important point to understand that we often hunt dreams as small companies, right?
Yeah.
We go on LinkedIn and see all those successful large companies. In reality, 70 to 80% on LinkedIn are small companies, and
Hmm.
that or even solopreneurs these days. So it is not like, hey, all the big ones are on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Personally, yes, but not representing their companies there. So what we should focus on is what do we need as a small company to survive? And this is, first of all, no stress for a longer period of time, because there is where you actually lose your people. I think the number one worst thing I saw in small companies, and I experienced myself, is to not lose the money in the end. It's to lose the people in the end who can help you
Yeah.
finishing
Attrition.
a product or
Yeah.
something like that. That is actually extremely important
Yeah.
to know, because stress will make you lose people.
Yeah.
And that's as an entrepreneurial type of whatever,
Hmm.
you need to make sure that this is one of the highest priorities. And for that, of course, you need to have money to pay them, and you should have not the
Yeah.
obligation created for them to work in over hours, weekends, or even
So we
all nighters, right?
so we said the primary benefit to small organizations is that continuous delivery produces data you wouldn't otherwise have. Data about the efficacy of your processes, about the health of your engineering culture. That is very useful data to have, because it'll highlight this exactly, right? So, how many procedures are there that are undocumented, that are just, word of mouth and skill and experience? How many such procedures are there that only one person knows how to do? And only one person knows when to do it and why to do it. Right? So if you have a continuous delivery pipeline, then the continuous delivery will touch, on its edges, it will touch such a person, because the person will either look at its results, or they will start the pipeline manually. And if you have a procedure where there's like 7 people building 7 different pipelines and they don't automatically interact with each other, that gives you immediate data that there's something wrong. It gives you data that even if your product is successful, this organization is not ready for scale. And that's when you need data. That's what you should be focusing on, knowing if the product is successful, and we go even to higher intensity of building the next product because we get funding and we get cash flow and get revenue, can we scale this team very quickly? And if you have no data, you might mistakenly think that yes, you can. And then introducing continuous delivery into such a team environment is much harder. because nobody has experience. Everybody has a different idea about what it is, which parts we need. Everybody gets distracted about tooling again.
To be honest, a product company, no matter how big, is easy to actually implement continuous delivery in comparison to an agency work type of company,
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
agency work type is so hard to get
Service-based, yeah.
continuous. It is possible in some way.
Because you're selling, you're whenever you're transferring intellectual property code, you need to have this conversation of, do you want the CI/CD pipeline? Right. So, do you want to buy the pipeline? Like, we build the pipeline for ourselves to match our procedures, but if we sell you the software, do you have a software team? Do they want the pipeline? And
Yes,
a lot of
oftentimes you
people,
don't have agile contracts, which means that
exactly. Yeah.
if you want to do continuous delivery, you need to have an agile contract in some form. And if you
Yeah.
have a rigid traditional contract where someone tells you, hey, what is this feature about? You say 10 hours and they give you a certain amount of money
Yeah.
and
Time and
nothing more than that.
materials, the requirements in the
That's
contract.
hard to actually
That's
say, okay, we're doing continuous delivery until the 10 hours are over, then we stop to do
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's not
And then we
continuous anymore.
argue, and then we
Yeah.
argue whether it's new work or
But
maintenance
how?
or whether.
Let's quickly
Yeah.
discuss how we can improve that. So I found ways, because this was partly and still in some cases where I'm involved in. Personally, I don't like it. So first of all, I don't like agency work at all. I think this is one of the worst things you can be in as a software developer. But if you want to improve that, you need to make sure that you align your business. So only take agency work which allows you to do that. So this is the very same thing as I said before. You need to make sure that you have the runway and the budget to actually work. Because if you don't do that, you will pay for the problems resulting out of this relationship, unhealthy relationship between the business and the let's say external development department, which you are in that moment. But you will take, and you need to pay the costs which are basically created in that moment, and you need to take those into your account. And you can't convince any client to do this for you, because they will always say, hey, why haven't you told about that in the beginning, that there will be this kind of problem in 2 months? Because you don't know, and you can't tell them, because they then tag you as incompetent. And this is one of the big problems, in my opinion. It is hard to change something like that. It is possible but hard. But if you're in a company like that, try to avoid every client, if it's possible, who is not willing to sign an agile contract, which is basically a contract which allows you to have no fixed deadlines, but you have to report very, very constantly on what you do, and basically be there to do those things. This type of agency work does work because you are nothing else than an external department of an internal company. But if you're just someone who is fulfilling tickets, it's hard to do that, and I wouldn't try to do that. Yeah. There is no value actually, no matter what you do.
See, the issue is, however, if you have no experience performing continuous delivery, so focusing on outcomes to a customer, then you also have no experience how to sell an agile contract. Because you probably have no idea what the value to the customer is. You just want to sell your hours. You just want to pay salaries. Like, if that's the kind of business that you are in, then you're not a serious business professional. Right? Like, you need to be able to, if you're in the service agent, if you're in the service business and you're providing a software service, you provide software coding, engineering as a service to somebody to build a product, you need to learn how to negotiate with them about value, which means your primary objective should be to make them go away. It's like, why do you want to build this piece of software? Are you sure it's valuable? Why is it valuable to you? How is it valuable to you? How does value change if what are the levers? If I do this instead of that, does it improve value or lower value? What is important for you? Like,
Yeah.
what qualities are important in the software? And create a pipeline around that detects those states. And the value that you can provide to them with continuous delivery is that everything they say is valuable to them. you can then measure and test and report to them continuously. They will love that. But if you avoid that conversation out of resistance, and you don't know how to nurture interest for that conversation, and you won't say no unless you did have that conversation successfully, then there's no future for you. An agile contract won't save you because you don't know how to talk about value. You don't know how to talk about outcomes. You don't know what their business outcome for the software is. You're just thinking about, I have 10 developers, I need to pay their salaries, we need to make at least this much in billing. That is not a business problem for your customer.
On the contrary, as oftentimes companies, or if someone is listened to who is an entrepreneur and try to find a contracting company who is doing this fulfillment service, always have in mind that those people who are doing this needs to be aligned to your business goals as well. And if it's only like you have some rough description and sometimes you have a meeting once per week and you put your time and money there, you can be certain that this money isn't wisely spent. It is just spent to pay salaries in the first place, and if it takes longer, people don't care. But they will act in the end like it's agile because you never know. But on some point, you will get into tensions. Who is paying the bill now? The let's say the costs which will be created by this bad process, and you need to take care of that. And I would recommend to always discuss it with an agency if you don't have the capabilities. If you don't have a CTO, if you don't have a person who could build up a team internally, then you might need that. Then make sure you have a company which is willing to take ownership over a longer period of time. I would never ever contract someone maybe for a prototype, but not for a long-term project, which is an agency which shall build you the product for the next 10 years.
I would even go as far and to recommend that do not look for an agency that just willy-nilly transfers over intellectual property like that. Look for an agency that keeps intellectual property and wants to remain your business partner. I know that's
this is what we actually do.
I know that
with
that's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
As a buyer, that's counterintuitive. What do you mean? I pay to build it and you own it, but you want that kind of business partner. You want them to own it because you have no idea of
otherwise you could have built it internally. Why don't you build it internally then? Because you don't want to, and you need to have something long term, which means that like just as a little explanation how we do that with Cloudbuy is that we don't take that much upfront, sometimes nothing. We just have it as a service, which means that we calculate some form of pricing where we use our engine we have built. And this part then will be served as a software as a service thing for the next years to come. We are in boat, they are in boat, and if they make they are successful with the project, the clients in this case are partners, so we don't see the actual clients, it's more the partnering thing. And then we will become more successful as well. We are involved in that process, like an internal company would have been. We even play the CTO role there, which is I'm doing that in this case. I really sit next to the executive then and play executive because I'm an executive just in another company. So we team up how we can, do those things better now, how we can improve, how we can get the clients more satisfied. And this is actually what works quite well.
Overlap more with the business plan, right? So there is a business strategy to the software, to how you either white label the software or provide the software or create derivatives of the software or sort of focus the software in a certain configuration towards a certain demographic. Is you continuously need to adopt that process. It's the work doesn't stop when the software is built. That's when the work starts. Right, so like this idea that the software project has an end date is silly. Only unsuccessful projects think like that. Or if you're building commodity software, but you want it built bespoke.
Yeah.
Right. So you're buying a table, but you want it like handcrafted because you have a very particular aesthetic style and you want it to be special. You don't want to buy an IKEA table that everybody has. And a lot of people are doing that sort of bespoke software development for commodity software. I need a CRM that has login and no, it's like, are you silly? Like, just buy one of the CRMs. Just buy it. But I need special no, you don't. What you need is to figure out what your process is and document it, and maybe hire an engineer internally to help you figure out whether digitalization is the right step right now. Because what you need to answer is, if we digitalize this, how does it affect our revenue? How does it affect our costs? How many more humans need to be involved? A lot of people think, oh, we will just digitalize everything and it will make everybody more efficient. Usually what happens is they just need more humans to maintain the software.
Mm-hmm.
And efficiency is about the same, but the costs are skyrocketed because engineers are super expensive. Then everybody realizes, wait, hang on. This is a e-commerce company and we have salespeople, and the engineers are more expensive than our salespeople? Which means our margin has now dropped by 50%, but our productivity has not increased by 2x. And the math doesn't check out. What can we do? Is there a software problem? No, it's a process problem. You have a process that doesn't match your business strategy. Mm-hmm. And you need a strategic technologist who helps you realign that. And if that is not aligned, then the correct answer, the correct solution to that problem is not moving faster on the engineering front. In fact, what you should do is slow down so that you can move as little as possible, because what they are creating is waste. Every form of motion that they are doing that is not serving a customer is waste. I saw lean being mentioned a few times in comments. Stefan, thank you. And I'm not even talking about the overproduction of inventory kind of waste. I'm talking about motion. I'm talking about logistics, right? The fact that developers have to meet up on meetings and understand things and explain things. That's all motion. That's all processing.
And another part is that 80% of most software out there is basically similar and have overlap with others. Yeah. And oftentimes it's just a part of 10 to 20%. So this is what we found out in our own researches, which is actually a number of customizations we do for clients, but everything else is the same. And we basically created the engine for that. And that's very important. So if you want to sell software in the future, agency work, the traditional one, will become more and more expensive because it's a little bit aligned to the market and the current situations in the markets. And it's actually bad in the Western world. It's bad right now. And you need to find something which is sustainable, which doesn't have a big hurdle in the beginning. So we are all used to SaaS, right? So we are used to have our Spotify app, or we are used to have a full content management system for $1,000 a month, and we are used to it, and it's okay to use that, something like that. So in order to have that in the customized area as well, and customized doesn't mean 100% customized, it only means 10 to maybe 20% customization. And you can only do that if you customize it. And the big problem for companies trying to do that is they are not capable of achieving some kind of mug architecture where they basically compose software out of existing software. And oftentimes, still, it's not a good idea because there is one specific thing, and this is where I want to connect back to the topic why continuous delivery is so important. What you want to do is stay in a flow. But if you have an internal development department, which needs to do everything in the product themselves, they are actually just focused on creating a single product, which is just the internal digitization platform. And they just, working that something is getting done. But they are not really in a continuous delivering mood in that course or in a process, because they actually just try to follow the business idea. They don't scale with that idea, and they don't really do something to really say, okay, we can now support the business so that business can make more value, because the business does have an idea, and you need to be able as a software as a development department to deliver on time, which is at best in the same week. So if they have an idea, deliver the idea. Don't mess around with infrastructure and getting things to work and making big updates because some of your tooling has changed. This is not where you earn money. Infrastructure is where you don't earn money at all. You just spend money there. You need to have. That's the point why so many people are now looking more towards, hey, what can I buy off the shelf in order to make it? Because they think then we can focus on the actual creation of value and not on the underlying process. This is why we, for example, as a software generating company, software production company for software, we are actually using PaaS instead of infrastructure as a service anymore because it is a waste. This is the same for businesses and software. It's the same for us and infrastructure. So we need to make sure that we can continuously create features which will create values for others. And this is what everyone needs to understand, continuously deploying things to clients and delivering them. And you can't do that if you have 5 Kubernetes cluster to manage and you don't know how, and it takes you a whole weekend to figure it out how, or pay an extraordinary costly person to fix that ongoingly for you. Those things really keep you away from creating value. And what you really need to understand is, how can I get as a business into this continuous delivery in process? Do I need an internal company department for that? And if yes, on what should this internal development team focus? And this is not on playing around with infrastructure or nice frameworks. This is about, there is an idea, let's get into an iteration for this idea, the agile thinking. So how can we do that? But if we say, hey, we have this idea that we could have a content management system, okay, let's start with the authentication process. We are done in 2 weeks. What's that? You will never get there. You will never deliver proof in that moment.
The important thing that we need to consider here is that, I checked your show notes real quick. And you mentioned financial stability. You won't find financial stability by building everything. It's not the point, right? So our focus with continuous delivery is not speed. That doesn't mean that you're going slower. It's just that it is not the primary KPI, and it is not an isolated KPI. Like, we want speed and the right product fit, right? So it's not enough that you're just on time or on budget, because we can spend your budget on time. If you think about it that way, if you're optimizing being on budget and on time, I can guarantee that I can spend your budget on time. It's very easy to do. All I need to do is say it'll take exactly how much money you have. And usually people go into agencies asking them, how much is it going to cost? Oh, 100,000. Okay, so you want this and this and that? Okay, let's build an MVP. It's going to take 3 months. It's going to be 100,000, and we need about a team of 5 for that. Typical Germany setup for like that offshores, nearshores to Eastern Europe, right? Like, that's a typical setup. And everybody gives you the same numbers. And there's no science behind it. It's just, like, they don't know. They gave you no guarantees. There's no guarantee of value. It's not continuous. They just gave you the typical high cost of living compared to offshoring to low cost of living plus margin math about how long it takes to spend your budget in 3 months. And that's the thing that we should be avoiding doing naively to your own company, right? So you shouldn't be looking for optimizing spending your budget on the wrong product. You should be looking at spending as much money as possible on the right product. But the problem is you don't know what the right product is until you do some mistakes. So what you need to do is you need to balance your budget, trying to figure out, okay, how much effort goes into experimentation, and what data will the experiments give us, so that we get left over with a large enough pile of money, so that once we know what the right product is, we still have money left to pivot. That's the main challenge for most small businesses, is that you need to spend money consciously to build whatever, so it gives you data. So then by the time you figure out what the customers are ready to pay for, without seeing the final result, that you still have enough money left to actually then explore all the chaos that involves building what you now think is a much better market fit. Whether that is a pivot or not a pivot, or whether that's just an increment, an improvement to your product understanding, or changing changing psychographics, changing demographics, targeting the product at a slightly different vertical in the market. That's what it really comes down to. Because you can be on time all you want. But what you need to be is on product, essentially. You need to know that your product is valuable. You need to know that your product, and not you, the business owner. Your engineers need to know why the product is valuable. There's nothing worse than engineers building software for a domain that they don't understand. That's the whole reason why we have concepts like domain-driven design, team topologies, the concept of flow engineering. Your engineers need to know what the value stream flow is, right? They need to know why their code produces value to somebody. How is that somebody going to use their code, their software, to provide business value for that some other business? They need to understand that intimately. If they don't understand that, all they can do is spend the budget on time to produce some kind of increment. But that means this money has gone into the experiment bucket, not the value bucket. And a lot of companies that I see, small companies, for them, 100% of their budget is the experiment budget. They just keep experimenting until they run out of money. And that's irresponsible. Because you shouldn't be experimenting with...
That's a very good point.
Because it costs money to close businesses. You can't just close a business. It costs money to close businesses. You might have access to secure data. Well, you might need to do something with that. It might cost money to fire people. It might cost people to lay off people if you want to keep parts of the business and not declare bankruptcy. There are so many reasons and directives, and Slovenia is different to Germany, and you might not want to declare bankruptcy in Germany, but you might easily do so in the US. There's all these reasons, and it might be very important for you to have a lot of the budget left by the time you figure out that all of your experiments are unsuccessful. And you as the business owner need to be thinking about that. Which means, in engineering terms, you have a lot less budget and time to work with than you think. Which means you need answers now, today. Soon, early, right? So the adjectives that you should be using is sooner, earlier, not on time.
As early as possible, actually.
As early as possible.
Every day is costly. So just, everybody who does have to pay salaries know what I'm talking about. It is costly, and engineers will feel that on some point, because this is most of the time when those toxic cultures between business and development arises. And we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. And this is not primarily the responsibility of the developers. The developers have other responsibilities in that case, but to make sure that it doesn't happen is that the business is understanding, or needs to understand, that we need to do that in a continuous way, in continuous delivery. So the topic for today, continuous delivery, and why especially small bootstrap companies should understand. And we have often like, hey, we need to build MVPs, and then people argue what actually an MVP is or something like that. If you are in the process of building your product, you already passed the idea of the MVP. You are building the product. You're investing already money, right?
If you're coding with employed, salaried engineers, you're way past MVP.
Exactly. MVP, so you need to make sure it will return money on some point.
MVP means you're using commodity software like Google Forms and Canva and Figma to build a fake that you can build in a week, to put in front of your customer to test for value. Right? That's an MVP. You building custom software that'll have a custom login solution and custom forgot password solution and custom OpenID connections and custom CRM functionality and whatever else. That's not an MVP. If your MVP takes more than 2 weeks to verify, I'm sorry, you're building software. You're building a software product. That is not minimal, that is not necessarily viable, and it might be several different products, not just one. So
that's this idea of an
MVP is way overblown for way too many people. They don't get how the point of MVP is I can spend less than 5% of my budget on it. That's MVP. Not even budget. I can spend less than 5% of my cash reserves because we have no cash flow. We have no revenue. So I can spend a very small amount of my reserves to verify whether this is worth pursuing. That's the whole point. A lot of people are building software without having verified that their idea is worth pursuing.
Good. I need to wrap up soon.
Yeah. I mean, we did agree to make the streams slightly shorter and then gradually merge them and sort of see what we can do about that to make them a little bit more snappy.
Yeah, so I think that was...
I just wanted to mention that the Thursday streams are off until the foreseeable future. If we are streaming, we're streaming on Friday. Right now, this week, I see a lot of interest happening right now on LinkedIn about pull requests. And if you're interested, ping us. I'll set up a pull request discussion for Friday. I know Adrian is on vacation technically. Would you be able to make the Friday stream?
I think so.
Is that a happy yes? Is it a happy yes or like a compromise yes?
It's actually a compromise, yes. I would be
then
dishonest.
let's make it next week. Then let's just do it next Wednesday and have next Wednesday be about. Do we have a guest on Wednesday?
Yeah, we have Stefan about CTOism.
Okay, well we can discuss it there. Then I'll record a little solo stream to tease certain techniques for Friday. I want you to enjoy your time off. You're on vacation, so I don't want to pressure you with more streams.
But regarding the topic of today, I think this is a very important topic, even though it's hard to explain to people. But there is a shift in the market. Maybe to wrap up with that, everything is going more into the direction, when it's successful, of being continuously delivering things. And the pattern for this is the SaaS world. And the SaaS world started very small with subscription-based models. And the subscription-based models are now in the customized area, and even in the B2B area. So we are building software for very large companies who are paying, basically haven't paid anything up front, but paying a decent amount of money every month. And it's raising depending on several factors, and people are happy with that. Why? Because they say it's less risk. They say they take ownership. One of the big aspects, they take ownership about that. So it's not like, hey, we own it, but somehow we don't know how to own it. And they own it, and they know how to own it, and we are partnering with them. And as long as you have this responsibility, and I'm talking often about responsibility, maturity, and responsibility. If you as a software development company not only have that with your engineers, but with the entire culture of your company, you can get clients who will work with you for years to come.
Yes.
And that's very important to understand. So there is a mindset shift, because SaaS, when we buy some SaaS software, it actually works. So all SaaS products we get out there are mostly working, if not always working. Maybe Teams is sometimes very strange, but it's still working. And we have this trust into SaaS software. And this is so very important to understand. How can you not waste your time anymore, but spend it more wisely in a SaaS product instead of pure agency work, which is unbeneficial for everyone in the equation. So this is, I think, a very important aspect. We should maybe dig into that topic a little later in the next weeks.
It might make sense to have a business owner as a guest on stream who can present the reality of running an agency, because that might make a little bit more sense. Just to get like a real touch ground, like grounded in reality perspective. Because it's been a long time since I worked for an agency. You've converted your agency to a product company. It might.
It was never an agency. It was always like partly agency. The problem was that we haven't had real, let's say, productified products. It was like we had a single product for a single client and maintained it, and that were more like external departments, and had our own products as well, of course, for franchise systems like Remax or Subway, something like that. But I think the agency part was you always needed to finance things, and that was the point where we had this agency work. And I don't know if I would recommend it these days to use agency work as a finance, but if you have no other option, maybe it's still reasonable. But that's a
Maybe not
topic
in
for another day.
Germany. Maybe in another country where you can scale and leverage your
You can
margins a
work
little
in
bit.
Germany for other countries as well. So Germany is not actually a rich country. Most people think that somehow, but it's not. If you take it, Germany is a very strange country when it comes to. It is a very socialist country, so it's very like let's say the
And
first
on that
ninety
note,
percent.
it's time to end the stream.
Yeah, but the first 90% of the salary range is actually nearly the same in Germany,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then suddenly you have a leap upwards, and
yeah.
this is the big problem. So everyone is earning not much, but you don't need that much because you have this entire system around that. But if you want to go outside of this system, it becomes strange, and this is what
I
makes it
mean,
so strange. But yeah, you
it's
can
a
work.
it's a very sterile environment if you think about it, because the living of standard is very high. Like the standard living standard is very high quality, but there isn't a lot of diversity, and the diversity part is being pushed completely into the luxury space. Whereas in other countries, primarily you would go to Spain because you want cheap diversity. You would want to go to Croatia because you want cheap diversity. You'd want to go to Greece because you want to see that nature, like the nature, the different lifestyle, the different foods, and it is much more economically available, but the standard of living is much lower, right? So, but to us, it is a higher standard because what we perceive as scarce is actually abundantly available there, which is that more choice aspect. If you go to the US, there's way too much choice in every freaking supermarket, and everything is super expensive. If you're a European, I'm not even generalizing that to a German. If you're a European and you go to a US supermarket, it's weird. It's a very weird experience. It's a very weird experience. You want to buy eggs? Well, which ones should I buy? There's 17 different brands, and just overwhelming. Anyway, a little tangent. Today was about continuous delivery. Benefits about continuous delivery. Quick wrap up. Uh, generate data. Generate data to make sure you're building the right product. Building the right product is much more important than building the product on time and building the product on budget. Number two, you want to eliminate the person factor, the boss factor, when we need this person to deploy, we need this person to design stuff, we need this person to run the linter, right? So get data on that. Continuous delivery might not be able to help you alleviate it immediately, but it'll give you data on what are the problem areas. Because the different pipelines will basically tell you, okay, how many touch points do we have? If you have 7 and you have 10 people, no problem. If you have 40 touch points, like if it takes 40 steps to deploy with like different pipelines, and you have 5 people, then one of them is certainly overworked with logistics and operations and building stuff. And it might be your front-end engineer. It might be your CTO. It might be your most versatile employee. And the pipeline will show where this is in the form of way too much feedback being generated on one end and nobody's looking at it, or by virtue of what are the behavior patterns. Are you doing this like octopus behavior where 7 people pile inventory together and then one person painfully deploys it? That the pipeline will tell you where those problems are, especially when then you remove that person from the pipeline. And that's point number 3. The point of the pipeline is to remove people from being necessary in taking a step forward, right? So whenever you want to build a pipeline and you say, no, Adrian needs to do that manually, that's a problem. You should document that. But unless you go down this route on investing time and focus into building these pipelines, you will never ask yourself, where are the obvious problems, right? And then because up until that point, you have an obvious answer, which is, oh no, Adrian does that, but I don't think it ever
Why
takes him
always me?
minutes. Dennis does that, but I don't think Dennis ever
You're
takes.
always taking me as a negative example of being the. Just say brand. Brand is way better, right?
Brand. Yeah,
Phoenix Project
Brand does
brand,
that.
not me. I
Phoenix
know I
Project
was
brand.
brand for such a long time. I
Yeah,
don't want to
brand
be
does
brand
that. I don't
anymore.
think it ever takes a brand more than 10 minutes. Yes, but if it takes brand 10 minutes per commit, if I scale that to 10,000 commits, brand can no longer deploy on a week. on a weekly
I
basis.
think that especially for small companies, the worst thing is that Brent needs to be there a day
Yeah,
on
yeah,
standby.
on standby. Yeah,
Otherwise, it's too dangerous. And this is the point
yeah.
where Brent then, or me, is take
And
or
distress.
do
Yeah,
you develop the behavior, the habit to always have your MacBook with you, even on a
yeah,
hike.
yeah. And then you they don't decompress, they don't de-stress, they ruin their work-life balance, which is great if you're in a startup and you have great product market fit and you're moving fast and working weekends and hustling for 90 days, knowing that it's the right direction,
That's
knowing that you
something
have
different,
funding
right?
from.
But
That's
that's not a
completely different.
process. That's not a
Most
process.
small
That's a
companies,
project.
most small companies are not in the viable startup space, and they don't know that, and they try to act like they're the next unicorn startup, and but they move really fast and they say, no, we're moving so fast we can't do continuous delivery. Nonsense. Okay.
Okay, we should wrap up now.
Yeah,
Thank you very
cool episode.
much for your time. I actually really need to go now. We will have a stream next Wednesday then. You
Hmm.
prepare something for Friday.
Yeah, I
So,
will have a little chill stream.
exactly. Just a little heads up, not heads up, but a little announcement. We have blogs, right? So maybe we can. Oh, we have too many of those messages right now. So let's start with that one. No, that one. That one is better. So we actually no, two ones right now. What we do here in on the streams is to provide you some free value in that moment, to have better engineering cultures, to have better engineering practices, and learn about those things because it took us quite a while to get to the point where we are, and it was quite
Mm.
painful. And we like to write and talk about it. Next to it, for example, Dennis is offering a great coaching program, so he can help you and your teams to get better in those things. Because sometimes it's better to have someone from outside helping you to speed up things. You can learn this for yourself, but for that you need to have a lot of intrinsic motivation, discipline, and time and money to actually get to the point. And you can shortcut this by having such a great person like Dennis is. And if you really need to know how good he is, just follow the streams. Just take a look on his blog. We have so many recordings already. You can just take a look at them. He's great in what he offers for you. And no matter what problem you throw at him, he always have long answers for that. I know, because I'm streaming with him
We have
and
a
I need
logic
to,
for that.
yeah, waffle answers. But those waffle answers are very important. So what you don't want to have is a yes or no. You want to have an explanation.
Mm.
This is all about explanation because the real experience is basically acquired by the developers themselves while practicing. But you need to someone to sit next to it as a cornerstone, as a guide, a coach, to help find that way. Because yeah, we can do it ourselves, but sometimes there are so many ways we can take. Finding the right way is painful and expensive, right?
And
So
that's
it took
really
me
it. You
years to
said
do
it.
that.
I mean, you really nailed the key element there. Is finding the right way. Most engineering leaders that I coach are either overwhelmed or unsure that the way that they're pursuing is the right one, and that's what we waffle on about. That's why it's coaching, not just giving you a spreadsheet to fill out.
It's a lot about try to get ideas, visions, and signs into an understandable format,
And make it
so
data
that yourself
driven.
can learn about it, and
Yeah.
we for ourselves learn basically every day new things about that as well. It is too complicated to really understand it just
Mm.
because, hey, I have listened to a podcast, now I understand those things. No, you don't, because you have never experienced what it means to be successful or not successful or having failure with those kind of things. And this is, I think, when you were part of failures, you learn an extreme amount of things, right? There's nothing more rich in terms of informations like a fail. It is embarrassing. You learn a lot with that, and
Absolutely.
this is where we come from. We're both, and yeah, happy to invite you to read our blogs and follow us. Next week, same time, Wednesday, every Wednesday, 16 CEST, summertime right now. Yes, that's actually it.
Here's Adrian's link. Adrian focuses on strategic and business coaching. So if you're a non-technical founder or a non-technical founder, or if you're a CTO who needs a buddy, I know CTOs can be very lonely. You have no peers, you have no superiors. I mean,
but all the blame.
You have all the blame. You might be tempted to not let your employees, your reports, too close because you're their boss, and it quickly gets an echo chamber, and you don't know who to ask for advice. Everybody CTO has a different perspective. Adrian is there to connect with you and sort of help you navigate strategic aspects, especially if you're the kind of CTO like us who loves getting their hands dirty on the technical and the tactical stuff, but then you end up applying your wide talent on a way too narrow, unscalable, unleverageable problem instead of your team. And then you can't ever free up your calendar, free up your time to really work on the important business stuff. And Adrian is a very, very lovely person to talk to, very humble human, and he enjoys helping you elevate from that sense of overwhelm and having to do heroics to the point where you can help the business sort of focus on business strategy and technology strategy and engineering culture.
Thanks.
So follow this guy, subscribe to his stuff. He has a lot of weekly content where he's trying to really get past your resistance and teach you something new that'll have immediate impact. So yeah, here's his links. It's a nice web page, but a lot of his links.
Daily videos at the moment. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Then I would wrap up now. Thank you very much. See you on Wednesday, and have a nice week. Yeah. So if I find the buttons.
Nice weekend. If you're on for the bonus stream, I'll see you on Friday. You, the audience. Adrian, you chill. You enjoy your vacation.
See you then. Bye bye, everyone.
Ciao.